Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. The Masters, the golf's first major tournament of the year, has been postponed due to the coronavirus concerns. Again, the Masters tournament has been postponed. Now, this is following the PGA Tour's decision to halt play at the premier event that they just had, the Players' Championship, following the conclusion of round one. So, again, the Masters is postponed. The tournament update right here, respecting the health and well-being of everyone associated with these events and the citizens of the Augusta community. The 2020 Masters Tournament, the Augusta National Women's Amateur, and the Drive, Chip, and Putt National Finals has been postponed. We're going to welcome in our Kyle Porter for more on this breaking news. Your initial reaction to the Masters being postponed, Kyle?
Well, I don't think it's super shocking. Maybe the timing of it right after the cancellation of the Players' Championship is a little bit of a surprise, but you know, I think this is where all this was sort of headed. You know, I thought they might let it play out a week, maybe 2 weeks, something like that, to see if anything transpired, but obviously they felt like this was the best course of action, and I think this is what you're seeing across all sports. It's not that much different. Maybe it feels different because it's the Masters. It's such an American institution. But here we are. It's a sad day. It's a frustrating day. And I know I was looking forward to the Masters. Tons of players. I'm texting players right now that were looking forward to it. And you know, I think it's important that they use the word postpone and not cancellation. I've already heard different rumors about when that could potentially be later on in the year. And I think it matters. You know, we saw the March Madness thing. It was cancellation, right? It was total cancellation. Players' Championship cancellation, not going to happen in 2020. I think there's still the hope and the desire for the Masters to take place in 2020 at some date to be determined later on.
You mentioned that you were texting with some of the golfers out there. What were their initial reactions? What are they saying as of now?
Well, I think just the fact that the Masters is postponed, like, it's hard to get past that. It's hard to get past the shock of that. I mean, that's such a it's such a ritual every year, right? Like at the beginning, the first full week in April, Easter time, all this different stuff, and it's just that it's not going to be played is bizarre. And I think that's what you're hearing from different players, different people within these organizations. And yeah, I mean, look, the Players' Championship and a couple of PGA Tour events, that's one thing, but to have the Masters postponed, that's a completely other thing.
You mentioned the timing of it and how you were interested in the fact that they just made the announcement now. Do you think that they would have been better off waiting, or do you think this is the call that they had to make?
No, I think it's the right call. I think you you see what the PGA Tour did, and they waited until almost the very end of all these organizations, right? And they were one of the last ones to make a move. And I think you look at that and you're like, it's just so hard, because the thing that I've been thinking about, Jenny, is what's the league that's going to be first to dive back into playing games? Is it going to be the NBA? Is it going to be Major League Baseball? If you're Augusta National, you only have one event. It's such a hard call. But yeah, to get ahead of this, I think is the right move.
Now, everyone always wants to know what's going on with Tiger Woods. Obviously, he won the Masters last year. So how could this postponement actually help or hurt Tiger?
Well, I think it'll only help him because, you know, he didn't play in the Players' Championship, the one round that was held. There were a lot of questions about his back. I think that, you know, if you're looking for positives, I guess, in all of this, is that, you know, maybe whenever the Masters is played or whenever golf does resume, that Tiger Woods will be healthy again.
Was there a player that you were eyeing this year that has done well up to this point and that you were looking forward to watching playing in the Masters that this could affect?
Yeah, I think the two guys that you kind of look at now, this changes because they weren't going to play for the next month, so I don't know if anybody was going to really have momentum going in. But the two guys that have been playing great, I think, are Rory McIlroy and Jon Rahm. You know, Rory's finished in the top 5 in his last 7 events, including 2 wins, won the Tour Championship, won in China in the fall, and then had a really good start to 2020. And then Jon Rahm has quietly been playing some of the best golf in the world. Not only the end of 2019, but the start of 2020 as well. And they both have a really good history there, several top 10s. They've got games that are kind of built for the place. And but now, you know, maybe they'll get their opportunity, but it certainly won't be in the second week in April.
So, of course, we don't quite know when the Masters will actually take place. But how could this impact the rest of the majors' schedule that's out there?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because, you know, let's say the Masters does take place in 2020, it is necessarily going to take a date away from a different event, unless they slot it like right after the season, in kind of the gap between the Tour Championship and the start of the next season in the fall. So you're going to have some restructuring if the Masters does take place. And I think, I've heard different rumors about, maybe it is after the season. Maybe it just gets bumped a month or two. I don't know. There's so many moving parts there and so many logistics that you and I can't ever see and will never see that have to get worked out. But, I think it's in everyone's it's a high priority for everybody in golf for the Masters to be played in 2020. And because of that, I do think they'll make every effort possible for it to take place.
Golf is interesting because unlike other sports, you can go out and play around. So how do you think that this time off is going to affect these golfers and their game?
Well, I think it will be interesting because you come back and it's like, well, nobody's played competitively, for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Nobody knows how long this is going to last. And I think, I thought it was really interesting to hear golfers talk on Friday morning about like, hey, we're not, the stuff that's going on is unimportant compared to the global health crisis that we have. Jon Rahm talked about that. Rory has talked about that. And I think that's really good perspective. But in terms of coming back to golf, yeah, guys are going to be, it's going to have been a while, not just for Tiger or for a couple of players, but for everybody, just because there's no competitive golf to be played right now.
Well, everyone's health and safety is the utmost priority, so that's what's most important here. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. The Masters, once again, have been postponed. Here's a statement from Fred Ridley, the chairman of Augusta National Golf Club, says respecting the health and well-being of everyone associated with these events and the citizens of the Augusta community. The 2020 Masters Tournament, the Augusta National Women's Amateur, and the Drive, Chip, and Putt National Finals have been postponed.
All right, so we started the day with the PGA Tour canceling the next four events, and now coming down the Masters, the 2020 Masters postponed. Chip Patterson joining us. Your reaction just hearing this just moments ago, because like I said, we started the day with just those four events. Now you got the crown jewel postponed for right now.
I think that it makes sense, at least in terms of what's been going on elsewhere in the world of sports. We have the news late last night that the Players' Championship, often considered the fifth major by some around the PGA Tour, that it was going to be not just going no fans for the weekend, but that they were packing up and they were shutting everything down. And as I've been covering the NCAA tournament, the ACC tournament, and the different ways that this decision-making process has unfolded, the one sense that I've gotten is that the people that are trying to be on the forefront of this are saying, look, we just got to take a break. We just got to take a step back. We just need to shut everything down, and we just need to chill out for a little bit. Because right now, to move forward, especially when it comes to not just large gatherings, but also when it comes to everybody else around this. It's not just those 4 days. I mean, we know the Augusta Women's Amateur takes place earlier in the week. You've got the drive, chip, and putt contest. There's a lot that goes on around the Augusta community beyond just those 4 days of competition for the Masters tournament. And I think that Augusta National really holds not just the competition, but the entire experience around that hallowed ground of golf in the highest esteem. And so why would you want to have a version of that might not be not only up to par with what we expect from the Masters tournament, but a version of that might not be 100% safe? We're in this moment throughout our sports calendar where everything is just sort of shutting down. I mean, for at least a month. And so I understand why Augusta National, when the tidal wave of decision-making is pushing everything one way, why they wouldn't want to be the only ones or the last ones holding out hope that they would be able to hold their event as planned on the date that it was scheduled.
Now, they had a little grace period with the 4 weeks of cancellation. Next thing on the schedule, April 16th at RBC. What kind of changed from yesterday up until this point and now postponing the Masters? In your perspective, what do you think may have changed in that decision?
I think that last night, the Players' Championship decision, and remember, these are different bodies, right? So the PGA Tour has its decisions. You know, when they cancel the Players' Championship, the Valspar, the next couple events, and then they say we will revisit. I mean, they don't even promise that we'll be back with the RBC. But I think that the Masters and Augusta National, remember, very different decision-making body, different event. It's held completely, you know, sort of outside the PGA Tour jurisdiction, I guess you could say. And so I think that they were falling in line there. I mean, it would be an uncomfortable situation. We don't know what the next couple weeks hold. I mean, how crazy has it been the way that everything is accelerated from a decision-making process, from an information in terms of what we know about this outbreak? It's accelerated in like 3 or 4 days. The world has changed in the last 3 or 4 days, not just for sports, but for our country as a whole. And so I don't know if the Masters would want to be in the position of claiming to be, and we are going to be the first event back, because we just don't know what the next 5 days or the next 15 days are going to, what's going to be in store there. And I think that that's where no sports organization wants to necessarily be the first one kicking back in that door, especially if it's going to end up being a little early and nobody can look into the future, because nobody could have predicted that we'd be in the position that we're in right now.
Chip, they take pride there in Augusta and how the course looks this time of year for the Masters. When you think about the azaleas, the greens, that time of year, if this slides back a month or two, how much does it take away from that? When you're thinking about the pictures that the Masters provides, the visuals, not alone for the patrons, but also the golfers as well.
Well, I'm lacking in a good, like, greenskeeping background here. I can't tell you exactly how they would perhaps mitigate that or try to create an environment that would replicate its early April start time. But I tell you this, they've got incredible systems to be able to keep all the grass and all the plants and all the flowers around there just immaculate. If there's any golf course in the country or any golf course in the world that has the kind of science and technology to be able to create the best possible environment. You know, we don't know when this is going to be postponed to. Like, it might be a few months. It could be into the fall. I don't know, and I don't even think Augusta National knows. I think that what Augusta National knows is that the responsible decision where we are right now, at this point in the outbreak and at this point in the decision-making process of all sports in the country, I just think that they knew that holding the Masters on the date that it was scheduled for was not something that they were going to be able to stand by. And so you might as well go ahead, and for the patrons that might hope to be able to come down and walk the course, for the golfers that have been planning to try and go and chase a green jacket, to just go ahead and add to what had been already sort of this buffer zone created by the PGA Tour's decision making, and say, all right, we are going to revisit this in a few weeks. We are going to, much like the NBA and much like the NHL and much like Major League Baseball, we're just going to take a step back on our preparation. We're going to take a step back on our planning, and we are going to reassess the situation for what is going to be the most safe thing for the public and for our participants in a few weeks.
And one of those guys actually chasing a jacket there, Tiger Woods. How does this kind of help him? You know, he's been dealing with injury. This kind of gives him a bigger window to kind of get healthy if this resumes. How does this help him out?
I mean, it does. I feel a little uncomfortable saying this is a win for Tiger Woods, but yeah, he wasn't in great shape yesterday when we were still planning to have the Masters in its scheduled date. And the fact that he wasn't in great health yesterday probably means he wouldn't have been the best version of himself if the Masters was played on its scheduled date. So the fact that it's been postponed absolutely gives Tiger Woods more time to get his game in shape. But I don't think there's any winners here. I understand we are going to talk about golf through a Tiger Woods lens. Tiger runs golf. That's the way we talk about it. But I don't see any winners. Yes, Tiger Woods has an opportunity to not be dealing with some of the same back issues that prevented him from playing in the Players' Championship. But I don't think there's any winner here in golf or in sports or in the country in general with the situation we're dealing with.
Yeah, the golf world just wondering when we're going to see the guys hit the green again. Chip Patterson, appreciate your time for joining us here on HQ. Again, check out the tournament update, respecting the health and well-being of everyone associated with these events. and the citizens of the Augusta community. The 2020 Masters Tournament, the Augusta National Women's Amateur, and the Drive Chip and Putt National Finals have been postponed. Again, the 2020 Masters Tournament has been postponed. This coming after 4 weeks of the next events on the schedule were canceled.
Let's now welcome in Rick Gaiman on the latest news of the Masters being postponed. So when we just found that out, I want to hear what your initial reaction was.
Yeah, certainly quite the wake-up call for me on the West Coast out here. You know, rolled over in bed and saw the news. And I think it's logical. I think that we knew this was coming. The NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, excuse me, you know, they said we're going to reevaluate this in 30 days. When you look at that on a PGA Tour schedule, that drops us right at the Masters. So if we're going to if we're going to follow the same path as the rest of those sports and reevaluate in 30 days, it would be tough to kind of flip that switch in 30 days and say, okay, we're playing the Masters tomorrow. Something like that's not going to happen. So I think this was the most logical conclusion, and we get out ahead of it. We're 4 or 5 weeks away, and we can now kind of process and go from here.
Oh, we're looking at these beautiful images of Augusta National, one of the most gorgeous golf courses there is. Now, if this gets postponed to the summer or later in the year, do you think there's any concern of the aesthetics of Augusta and what it's going to look like?
Yes. Sorry, certainly, yes. There are traditionalists, and Augusta is the most traditional course on the face of the earth. And not only is it about the Masters, but it's about playing the Masters in the first week of April and the conditions that bring. And the azaleas are blooming, and you drive down Magnolia Lane, all of that. It's all the tradition. So we are going to have to come to grips as kind of golf traditionalists that if we see this later in the year, in the fall, it's not going to look the same. It might not feel the same, but it'll still be the Masters.
You mentioned that you believe this is the right call. Are you surprised on how fast this all accelerated?
Yes and no. I mean, just the sports world over the last couple of days seems like it's been flipped on its head, and nothing has been slow. So with the quick response that we've seen from the other sports organizations, how quickly the PGA Tour went from, hey, we're just not going to play without fans, to we're not going to play at all in a matter of something like, 10 hours. It kind of doesn't surprise me now that Augusta was right behind to say, okay, you know what, we're going to make our announcement right now. Let's just keep going with this.
When you look at the future schedule, I mean, golf is a busy year. Where do you see this fitting in?
Yeah, and not only is golf traditionally very busy, but the last couple of years, what they've done with, major season where there is one huge event in every month. This year is an Olympic year, so we have that, and who knows what the status of the Olympics are moving forward. I don't know where they could fit this in. Conceivably, if you tack it on at the end of the year, the end of September, something like October, I guess that's the most logical place, because if we get back to our regular PGA Tour schedule, tacking an event on at the end would probably be the least disruptive. But man, we are certainly in uncharted territories right now.
Golf purists are going to have to just wake up and realize that this is the new age and this is what we're going to deal with. So, Rick, thank you so much. If you want to hear more from Rick and if you want to hear more from Kyle Porter, you can find that all on the First Cut podcast, CBS Sports digital golf podcast. You can download and subscribe wherever you listen to your pods. So again, breaking news, the 2020 Masters tournament is postponed.
Yeah, you can hear it echoing from the guys there. You kind of saw this happening with the next 4 events after this Player Championship was canceled yesterday after the first round. The next thing on the schedule was the Masters. So it's one of those things where you kind of predicted it based on what we've seen around the NBA, the NHL, everybody basically closing shop for now.
And Chip Patterson saying that it is a different body, the PGA Tour versus the Augusta National and the Masters. And they made that decision. So here is the statement from Fred Ridley, the chairman of Augusta National, respecting the health and well-being of everyone associated with these events and the citizens of the Augusta community. The 2020 Masters tournament, the Augusta National Women's Amateur, and the Drive, Chip, and Putt National Finals have been postponed. Much more to come on CBS Sports HQ.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.